Do you ever have leftover paint on your palette? This happens to me all the time. Hi, my name is Brooke, and I cannot stand for any of that paint to go to waste. So I'd like to find ways to use it. Today, I'm going to be adding it into an art journal spread, and I will be adding other paint to it just because there's not a whole lot left on my palette. But I wanted to find ways to incorporate the little that I had left. So I'm starting out here by adding some gesso onto my page, and I did heat that most of the way then with my heat gun just to speed up the process. Most of this video is in real time, but I do cut out pauses and stuff like that just to make it go a little bit quicker. But I wanted to show you how easy it is to go from the inspiration of a little bit of paint on your palette to a quick spread that I'm really satisfied with in the end. So it feels good to put that leftover to use. I added a little bit of high flow paint and then with some water spread that around, and I ended up just closing my book to get it to spread on both sides, and I like the organic look of that. It's a little bit less planned. And then with my pencil, I came in with some just scribbly marks and then some more intentional marks as well. Now this is a color that I had on my paint palette originally, and I was out of it, but I felt like I needed this color to bring some differences in with that green. So I'm just using it right out of the tube here instead of putting it on my palette. I'm trying to make sure that I don't end up with the cereal and the milk situation where you run out of cereal but you still have milk, so you add cereal in, and then it's just an ongoing cycle. I'm sure that we've all been there, and so I didn't want that to happen with this session here. So I had mainly this light blue color left over and the green gold color, and the blue is in a heavy body and the green is in a fluid. I pick more based off of what color I want to use a lot of the time than what thickness it is, but I like this blue here being a little bit more opaque than the green is. It gives me some nice differences. So I'm focusing a lot of my paint here on this center area. I wanted it to feel light and airy. I don't have dark colors left on my palette, and so I want to kind of lean into that airier feeling. And by leaving a lot of white areas, I think it just ties things in together well. I also have been practicing trying to leave more negative space. I know that I can come back in and add negative space with white gesso if I wanted to, but I've been trying to challenge myself to leave some of those areas a little bit more blank from the beginning. And so it's great to set these little goals for yourself of how you want to create, and little exercises like this where it is no pressure. All I'm doing is using leftover paint that was already out anyway. So another thing about using the paint on your palette is it's probably partially dried by now, at least mine is. So the black that I started out with on my fingertips, it was leaving a fun impression than on the page, and I didn't have much more, so I did use it out of the cap of my gesso, which really did help to kind of mimic that look. So it's fun to discover the different ways that the paint will interact once it's left to dry or in different circumstances. Now with a little bit of water and my black Stabilo Woody, which is water soluble, I'm making some marks on the page. I'm trying to be careful not to have too much water here. That's why I'm using my paper towel to kind of dry some of it off to begin with. I like it when the marks smudge out like they're doing right here. So that was kind of my goal from the beginning, and not all of them are like that. But looking at it, it's kind of nice to have the differences in that color. Adding in some paint splashes, and that's really just the water on my brush from before when I spread out the high flow acrylic, and it was kind of a nice benefit that it still had the green left over. This section I did dry before I'm writing on it, and I'm just doing some Asemic writing here. It's not meant to be read, but I find the trick to Asemic writing for me is I'm actually writing real words here, but I'm just spacing things different. I clustered mine closer together. Everything is kind of overlapping, and I may throw in extra loops, things like that, but it makes it really give the appearance of text without it being meant to be read. So it's not taking away from anything else. It just looks like another pattern that's going on. So I have more of that green gold color on my palette, and so I want to darken some of those areas that I had before. So it's technically the same color as the high flow that I put in the beginning, which is like an acrylic ink, very fluid, versus this is more of a regular paint texture. And I could have just done one or the other, but I'm liking the look of the layers that I get by adding it multiple times in different versions, drawing in between. You get darker sections than others, and it just creates a really nice dimension. I want to come in with a little bit of a different green as well, so I'm challenging myself to just use what's here on the palette. So I'm mixing with what's already there. Of course, we can keep adding things in, but this is a nice way to challenge ourselves to what can we get by with if we just had a little bit, if we just had a few colors, how could we keep mixing them to look different and give us the definition and contrast and dimension that we're really looking for. So I'm coming in, I'm adding it with my paintbrush, but I find my fingers are a really good way to really blend those in when I kind of want to blur the edges and soften things up. This is also a fun challenge for me because most of the time when I'm working, I add in collage or stitching, textiles, which I love that dimension. But working with basically just paints and a couple mark making tools is a really good exercise for me in discovering what all the paint can do, what all I can do with just these basic supplies without relying on fabric or paper to give me that texture. Can I create that with just these limited supplies? So you may work the opposite where you're used to doing this and adding the stitching, the paper, the different embellishments is new for you. But any way that you're working, just challenge yourself to be a little uncomfortable. It's okay if the discomfort sets in and push through it. In the end, I can close this journal, move on from it, and not have to look at it again if I don't want to. But here I took the risk, I challenged myself, I accomplished multiple different things using up my paint, proving to myself that I could do it with limited supplies, mixing colors. All of these wins I would not have gotten unless I tried. So the next time that you have leftover paint on your palette, I encourage you to do something with it and maybe do something a little bit different than what you would normally do. I hope that you guys enjoyed this spread. I really love the way that this turned out, and it's fun to explore a little bit different genre than what I'm used to, and I think I will continue down this track. So if you haven't already, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. If you feel like you learned something today, I would love for you to keep following along. I try to post new videos about once a week. And while you're here, leave me a comment down below saying something that you tried that was different, or maybe something that you're going to try with the leftover paint on your palette the next time that you have it. Thanks, you all. See you next time. Have a good one.